I'm employed with Neighbor to Neighbor outreach to inner city people in the beginning phases. After 14 years, I came here in 2004 to begin outreach to the Latino community. Neighbor to Neighbor is a nonprofit organization, Christian organization dedicated to reaching people with the gospel, but holistically, and helping them in every aspect of their lives. So
I'm going to ask you what I ask everybody else, because these people are going to be interested in knowing. Do you demand that they become Christians? I mean, I'm a Christian. Sure, I want people to believe in Christ. However, is this mandatory? You see what I'm saying? Are you charging them for?
Well, no. The gospel is offered freely to people, and it's a gift. And therefore, we represent the gospel as much as possible through the way we love people, through the way we care for people, through a holistic approach. We don't just say, oh, we're here to fix you spiritually. We're here to help them with their financial needs. We're here to help them with their health needs. We're here to help them with whatever family needs there are. And I've been a missionary all my life, so I've always believed in a holistic approach.
Oh, okay.
And so it is what also many times more often opens the door to sharing the why we do this, and that's the motivation of Christ's love within us that then can change their hearts. So of course that's the ultimate goal, is them to encounter Christ, to have the opportunity to know what the gift is he offers them. But it may come through a channel of just serving at a breakfast, or helping them with their rent, or fixing a car. It just depends.
Yeah, well, you know, I ask this question a lot of people because I mean, I know too many people who really all they want to do is get you to come to their church or organization, or to put you down as one more soul saved for Christ. But you heard Dana King tonight, the high school principal over at Millbrook, and she had the same concerns too.
Absolutely.
Before she let the Crossroads group intersect with people who are under her jurisdiction, you might say, at least under her guidance. So you're going in deep with people. Tell us about how you're doing.
Absolutely,
this.
It's relationships. And when we came here, the organization originally came here too and said, what are the needs of this community? We're not here to start something else. There's a lot of things going on. And with our inner city, it started out with the young moms saying, teach our kids to read, because they're behind in their reading, and if they're behind in their reading, they're going to drop out of school. So Neighbor to Neighbor founded its ministry basically on a huge program of mentoring to start out with, and now of course we're broadened. So we started the same thing with Latino kids. When I came here in 2003, all these kids had come either with their parents, they didn't know English yet, and so we began a mentoring program to teach them how to read in English, to get them up to speed. So that was the original doorway of ministry to start.
All right, I'm interested in this because it's at the third grade where the big divide, where kids really start separating on the basis of reading. Did you go into that age group?
Yes, well, we went into, we do mainly elementary school now. We do some older, but when I started, I did kids wherever. We would look at a need. If it had a need and we had a volunteer, could we match them up? So we didn't discriminate, well, they're too old or too young. We looked at the community and we said, we're here to serve. So, of course, we had many more needs than we could serve at the time.
To give us a good story as an example.
Good story is
an example
Evelyn.
Of you busted into somebody's life and it made a difference.
Evelyn was a young girl in the second grade, came to the United States with her parents from Mexico. Evelyn was totally ignorant in terms of reading. The church that we collaborated with had a little bit of an after-school program, so there was a connection. Well, Evelyn came into my program, and I basically taught her first English. And so from the second grade on, I had a relationship with Evelyn. During the summer, she would come to our children's outreach, which we have a big Latino outreach every year. And then she was involved in mentoring. And as she grew, we maintained this relationship. I got to know the families through, again, calling. You know, anytime there are problems with reading, you get to know the parents, you talk to them. So that developed in a family relationship.
Let's just clear something up. Usted habla español, and some of them are going to be wondering, well, how did he did that?
Okay.
Now, I don't want to distract your story, but I want you to explain something. If this could be also done by some people listening to you, they're catching the fire of this, and they're saying, yeah, but I don't speak español. Yo no hablo español, ninguna palabra.
Está bien, yo entiendo. No, the program itself runs on English. In fact, if you don't speak Spanish, these kids are better off because they will hear the English. So the reading, the only ministry that we do that really functions in Spanish is a worship service and a women's outreach. The rest is in English. All our high school ministry is English because they're actually more fluent in English nowadays. Well, anyway, Evelyn grew up through the ranks. She would come every year to the program. She was involved in the program. When she got into high school, she got into what we called our Young Life type outreach, where every week, 2 weeks, we would have a youth outreach for Latino kids. We would pick them up from their homes, bring them in, And again, Young Life is a very high, fun kind of activity, and then the gospel is presented. We would go to camps, with summer camps provided through Young Life. So we got Evelyn to go to summer camps in Florida as an as middle school, high school camps. Through these interchanges together, Evelyn began to hear the gospel in all different formats and all different people.
Now hold on. What Leo is saying is reminding me that this whole event tonight is about people networking, and you're taking advantage of some of these other people, because I just recognized at least one organization. So you're taking advantage of this network.
Exactly, and the importance of that is that nobody has the funding to do everything. And there are people who know how to do things better than others. I worked 10 years in Orlando with Young Life, and I understood that the camping system they have is one of the best for reaching unchurched kids with the gospel. They just know how to do it because they've been doing it for 40 years. So it was in a sense, a no-brainer to tie in with them here, and they wanted us because we had an into the Latino community that they didn't have. So anyway, Evelyn continued to progress in this. She became in high school with me, she stuck with me, and then through the camp experience and through her relationship, she came to Christ. She graduated 2 years ago, working on her college. She's undocumented, she now has her, DACA thing, and we, worked her through that. So now, Evelyn is waiting to go to school, but while she's doing that, she's now been hired by us to do the mentoring program to the kids.
Well, that's so beautiful. Now listen, Leo, I've got to interrupt you again. I happen to have spent a whole lot of years around the Latino community, and part of my family is Latino. But I also know that a whole lot of Christians, mainly white churchgoers, get very angry about the Latinos, and maybe some of them would say, "Oh no, you're talking about illegals. Maybe I don't want to be involved." I'm not trying to be political here. I run up against this a lot. What's the basis? How does somebody have to qualify for your compassion?
God's kingdom doesn't have borders in terms of how we reach people with love and caring and serving. And Jesus talked about the judgment. And in the judgment, he talked about the goats and the sheep. And he said, you gave me water. You visited me in that. I don't see any borders in that thing about where you lived in this country or didn't. He just said, as you have done it the least of these, you have done it unto me. And so my view, and I talk to people too, is I try to give them a kingdom perspective. I said, no, I'm not against that breaking the laws, and I try to give them a perspective of walking their shoes. You're a dad, you can't feed your children, you can cross the border and get a job. I think if you were that father, you would probably do it, even though there was a law against it.
Right. We're not trying to be political or justify anything. We're just saying...
You're saying the need dictated the actions in many cases of these people. They're not here because they love America. They're here with desperation. Most of them would love to be back in their countries, in their villages with their families. Most of my people that are undocumented will never see their parents die. They're gone. They had to leave them 10 years, 20 years ago, and they're separated for the rest of their lives.
Okay, so you gave the example of Evelyn because she was a great example of somebody caught in between a couple of worlds, no man's land, and we both know all the details that go with that, and so this was an extraordinary accomplishment, but she's not the only one, and this is not about illegals.
No, it has nothing to do with illegal. It has to do with human need and the compassion that God calls us to have for these people. And that's how I view people of the world. I don't view them as American or un-American or as this, Asian, and that. I view them as a child of God, created in His image just like I am. And I have the right, and He wants them to have the right also to hear how much He loves them.
And have you noticed as you work with these families that you can come up with all kinds of reasons for despising people and not even thinking that anything good could come out of such a mess?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In fact, one little illustration that's really blown my mind. I said, God loves the people of these other countries so much that He's brought them to our backyard for us to love on them, because we didn't go when we should have gone to bring them the gospel. So God says, okay, I'm going to bring them to your backyard. Well, unfortunately, many of us are throwing them out of our backyard instead of loving them. Because I've been called to reaching beyond across cultures. I really feel that's an illustration for me. God, what am I doing with the people you brought to my backyard today?
Leo, tell them, what do you have to have in order to touch lives?
You have to have a vital personal walk with Jesus Christ every day. Because it's from that relationship with Him that you have the capacity to love, to forgive, to look beyond the picture that the world has of people and of evil, and you have the ability to look as God sees people with a heart that says, I want to redeem that person from the situation of sin. And it may not change their life completely until death, but it will transform their heart. And so you have to have a vital relationship with Christ. Otherwise, you will get clouded in your vision, and the politics and all this other stuff will come in. So keep focused.